अरे वाह.
Doesn't come and float like that. Before that, this people do everything better. I will think this, but you are on
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. God is eternal and infinite. And since we are permanently lodged in that infinity, we are all one. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. Jai Baba to all of you. Thanks to beloved Baba. I have just returned from Mumbai about 2 hours back, and Mumbai has given me some gift: sore throat, running nose, and what all that goes with it. So I will try to contain my urge to explain each and every sentence and see how it goes. So please bear with my hoarse voice. We are on page number 38. Go ahead, Samya.
The only solution to thin out this concentration of impressions is for the consciousness of the fully human conscious soul to experience increasingly and more rapidly these impressions in such a way and in so great a frequency that every impression experienced and the impression that this experience created should be counterbalanced somehow by an opposite impression.
What Baba is trying to say, in my understanding, limited understanding, is that the impressions or the samskaras should be balanced quantitatively and qualitatively. It is like we should be rid of all the samskaras. There is a game of cards which I think is called Uno. So, the less number of cards that you have in hand, you are the winner. And if you have no cards left, you have to throw your cards down in such a manner that you don't pick up another card. So, in other words, we have to experience and expend, that is, spend the samskaras in such a manner that we do not gather fresh samskaras. So, this sentence says, the only solution to thin out this concentration of impressions is for the consciousness of the fully human conscious soul to experience increasingly and more rapidly these impressions in such a way and in so great a frequency that every impression experienced and the impression that this experience created should be counterbalanced somehow by the opposite impressions. Just 3 lines before this paragraph, it's very important to understand. These impressions must be experienced and exhausted. Now, this is very, very important. And the more the impressions are experienced, the more the impressions become concentrated. It's like, as we say, a win-win situation. Here, this is a loss-loss situation or a lose-lose situation. And perhaps, I'm saying perhaps, that is the reason why Baba wants us to lead a normal, natural life, and to a point where he, in a sense, dissuades us from doing anything which we call it, the meditation technique or the karma yoga or the Raj yoga or bhakti yoga, because the moment I say, I, the limited, false, separative, finite self, say, I am doing this yogic exercises in order to become more spiritual, actually, in my understanding, I am gathering more impressions. And therefore, Baba says, just lead a normal, natural life, because higher than all these paths, the Bhakti Yoga, the Karma Yoga, the Dhyan Yoga, during the Avataric period, the path of love is the supreme. And that's why Baba says, just love me. And once we love him naturally, spontaneously, in whatever capacity, my understanding is that that is a higher path than any other path. All right.
Throughout the process of reincarnation, this play of balancing and counterbalancing the opposites of impressions continues, and on this play is sustained the reincarnation process. On this play depends the eventual emancipation of the human conscious soul from the chains of ignorance and the ultimate realization of self-consciousness.
That means this play is of opposites of impression. This also takes us to a deeper understanding. Many of us, somehow or the other, through ignorance, do not much appreciate or do not like. This is a lighter word. The stronger word would be to hate somebody from the other creed, other religion, other country. So if I am a man, I may have been a woman in my last life. If I am an Easterner, I may be a Westerner. If I am, let us say, a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian or a Parsi, Baba is roaring. Why do you want to say something which is not there in God's speech? What I'm trying to convey is, if we understand that if I am not liking a certain person, if I'm hating somebody, it means that there is some connection between us in the past. And that is why I am behaving in a certain pattern. So when we talk about one religion hating the other, it could mean, in my limited understanding, it could mean that it is an act of balancing of my past karma. But the better way of balancing is to constantly remember Baba, constantly love him, constantly create what Baba talks in the discourses, a provisional ego, which is subservient to that of the master, by constantly thinking, I am not the doer. It is he who is doing it. And in my understanding, if we I am using the word constantly do that, then on one hand, I am experiencing. It doesn't make a difference. So in other words, I am experiencing and exhausting my samskaras without accumulating fresh samskaras. That is the whole game. The whole game is to let all your cards down without picking up fresh cards. All right, go ahead.
Thus, in the process of reincarnation, the fully gross conscious human soul must necessarily experience innumerable and diverse experiences of impressions of opposites.
Must experience innumerable and diverse experiences of impressions of opposites.
The impressions, which are diametrically opposite in an apparently unending chain of consistent experiences.
It is only an apparently unending chain, because anything that has a beginning has to have an end. Anything that has a beginning and an end is not real, it is illusory, it is created. So one of the proof of the reality is that it is unchanging, it is constant, it is always was, is and ever will remain. So anything that is changing, for example, apparently unending change, but it does end, the experiences end.
Therefore, while the gross conscious human soul, which is now fully conscious, undergoes the experience of opposites in the gross world, the consciousness of the soul has to identify or reincarnate itself a number of times as a male, then as a female, and vice versa, in varied castes, creeds, nationalities, colors, and in different places.
See here, exactly. Varied castes, creed, nationalities, colors. We do not know. I may be, not looking at the other caste or other creed or other religion favorably. But who knows? I must have been that in my past. So, in other words, not to have very strong likes and dislikes for such things.
As rich one time and then as a pauper, sometimes healthy and sometimes sick, and so forth, all the while reviewing opposite impressions, creating opposite impressions, and simultaneously exhausting them by opposite experiences. It is only through these diverse opposite impressions and their respective opposite experiences that the gross conscious human soul in the gross world could possibly one day, after millions of births and deaths, and through these opposite experiences of births and deaths, be able to balance or thin out the residual or concentrated opposite impressions.
There's an asterisk.
Asterisk.
So, in other words, as I say, reincarnation is a process of thappar, thada, thad, thada, thad. And all these experiences has one purpose, to thin out whatever was concentrated, to make it feeble, to make it rarefied, to make it weak, all the impressions. So the reincarnation process has that particular purpose in mind, to thin out the concentrated gross samskaras. There's an asterisk.
Asterisk. सरापा आरजू होने ने बंदा कर दिया हमको, वगरना हम खुदा थे घर दिले बे मुद्दुआ होता. The fact that I am weighed down from head to foot with desires has made a slave of me. I should be God in reality were my heart and mind desireless. This quote is by Mir Taqi.
In other words, it is the desire hooking up more and more samskara. There's another interpretation, same thing. It doesn't matter. This shows Baba is also listening. From head to feet, my desires made me a slave. We are all slaves of our desires. Else, I was God if I were desireless. In other words, Baba talks about desire for being desirelessness, hope to rise above all hopes, want nothing and you will have everything. In other words, desires are the building blocks of our constant rounds of birth and death. So once we are in that state of, equipoise, equanimity, it's like just be and the things will arrange itself. It's a very beautiful place to be in, just be. Don't have too many excitements, too much of I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to achieve this, I want to achieve that. Automatically it has to, this is my philosophy. I'm not a person of effort. I don't generally, just be, and everything what is due to me will come. Whatever is not due to me and I already got it by hook or by crook will go away. It's like that.
It is this cycle of deaths and consequent births of human forms that ultimately results in inciting the fully evolved consciousness of the gross conscious human soul to involve this consciousness to that depth where the fully involved consciousness of this soul realizes the reality of the infinite, eternal state of the self.
It is this cycle of death and birth and death, birth and death, birth and death, and consequent births of human forms that ultimately results in inciting. Inciting would mean arousing or goading, or it creates a stimulus that I have been having so much of experiences, good, the bad, the ugly and everything. It incites the fully evolved consciousness. Mark the word evolved, because in the human form, evolution is complete. Evolved consciousness of the gross conscious human soul to involve this consciousness. Now, from evolution to reincarnation to involution, to involve this consciousness to that depth, that means to the seventh plane, where the fully involved consciousness of this soul realizes the reality of the infinite eternal state of the self, capital S. In other words, Baba uses somewhere that the flashlight of our consciousness, remember, nothing ever happens to the soul. Every experience is taken by the mind and consciousness. The flashlight of consciousness, which was all this time focusing on outside, without, we call it, gradually turns within. And this gradual turning takes place as the samskaras become weaker and fainter and feebler, it becomes feeble. So this flashlight, which was all the time actively participating in the gross, is now not at all attracted or deluded or whatever, by the gross. And it is now focusing on within. And that is where it starts involving. It starts seeing the inner world rather than the outer world.
Because the gross consciousness is over.
Sorry?
Gross consciousness is worn out. No, that is why.
Correct. That's exactly what I'm saying. When does this happen? When the gross, concentrated gross consciousness or concentrated gross samskaras gradually, over a long period of time, thins out, there is nothing gross remaining. So those samskaras or impressions now convert itself into subtle impressions. And that is where this flashlight is now focusing within. That particular soul continues to remain in the gross world, behaves like an ordinary gross human being, eats, drinks, sleeps, talks, everything, but his consciousness is in the subtle. He is not aware of what is gross. It may be a little difficult to understand, and Baba was asked a similar question. And Baba gave the example, I think I had said it on this forum, of a somnambulist, a sleepwalker, who is doing things in the night, getting up in the night and doing things, I am watching him. I am a gross conscious human being, so I am only observing and marking his or her gross actions. But his focus is not on the gross action. He is somewhere else. He is not at all conscious that he is doing all these things. And similarly, a subtle conscious human being is not at all conscious of his gross actions, and therefore he is not at all bound by whatever he does in the gross. Similarly, mental, we'll come to that.
This process of involution of consciousness gradually takes place as the gross impressions of the opposites gradually become fainter and less concentrated.
So the concentration becomes less and less and less. It becomes faint and faint and faint, thin and thin and thin, feeble and feeble and feeble, till such point as you are in the gross, you are sometimes aware of the gross, sometimes aware of the subtle. It is a very smooth transition. It is not that you go to sleep in gross and then next day you wake up into subtle. It's a very gradual transition from the gross to the subtle.
At this stage, the consciousness of the gross conscious human soul gradually gets dissociated from the gross world as the involution of consciousness infolds and gradually dissociates from experiencing the impressions of the gross world.
So it is now focusing infolds, gradually dissociating from all that is gross. Consciousness, he may still be eating, drinking, sleeping, talking, everything, but the consciousness has dissociated from the gross and now it is moving towards the first plane.
This involution of gross consciousness is only possible when the opposite impressions gradually, after a very, very long process, thin out through the process of unfailing reincarnation, which leads to the limit of gross impressions of the opposites and gross experiences of the opposites.
In other words, after experiencing all that is to be experienced over so many millions of lifetimes, this gross impressions thins out and then gradually transforms itself into subtle impressions.
Part 5.
Now we are on part 5.
The planes. Involution of liberating consciousness. When the liberating. When the consciousness of the soul is ripe for disentanglement from the gross world, it enters the spiritual path and turns inwards. Its gross impressions now become less deep. They become fainter or more subtle, with the result that the soul now becomes subtle conscious. This is the first step in the involution of consciousness, which is striving for liberation from the burden of impressions. A number of cycles of births and deaths in the human form have to contribute towards that ripeness of gross experience, which ultimately propels the consciousness of the soul onto the path of liberating involution, on which impressions become fainter and fainter and eventually disappear. Gross impressions become subtle impressions. Subtle impressions become mental impressions, and mental impressions are ultimately wiped out, leaving consciousness free to reflect the truth. Now there is...
I don't think there is any explanation required. There is a supplement here which is on page 193. If anybody has any questions, please ask in between, no problem, so that we are able to follow what Baba wants to say. Okay, 193. Go ahead.
Practical mysticism. Approach to truth is individual. There is no general rule or method applicable to all who aspire to realize God. Every man must work out his own salvation and must choose his own method, although his choice is mostly determined by the total effect of the mind impressions, sanskaras, mind impressions acquired in previous lives. He should be guided by the creed of his conscience and follow the method that best suits his spiritual tendency, his physical aptitude, and his external circumstances. Truth is one, but the approach to it is essentially individual. The Sufis say, their quote, "There are as many ways to God as there are souls of men," unquote. At-taruke in il-ilahi kanafsi bani Adam. Then there is a quote by Akbar, "Jamal-e-fitrat ke lakh partav, kabul partav ki lakh shakhin, पारिक-ए-इरफान, मैं क्या बताऊं, यह राह किसकी, वह राह किसकी." Akbar, nature's beauty has thousands of facets for which there are thousands of ways and means of acceptance, understanding. In the path of gnosis, who can determine which particular mode or mood is earmarked for a given individual?
So here what Baba is trying to convey, that the path to salvation is individual. It all depends upon your own mental makeup, your physical condition, and what are you attracted to. There are so many people who are very spontaneously attracted, let's say, to meditation, or very spontaneously wants to help others, karma yoga. So there is no fixed path as such. All these paths ultimately lead you to the truth or the reality. So here Baba says, approach to truth is individual. So we can never say, Array, you are never meditating. How this is not, this is unspiritual. You are not doing this, this is unspiritual. No, because we do not know what is the samskaric mold or the samskaric makeup of individual person who is striving for liberation or striving for get to the truth. There is no general rule or method applicable to all who aspire to realize God. Every man must work out his own salvation and must choose his own method, although his choice is mostly determined by the total effect of the mind impressions, which is the sanskaras, acquired in previous lives. We always say that what we have come in this human form is to work out our own samskaras. So, in that sense, we are all slaves of our own samskaras. Many times we say that this person is very difficult. You know, how many times I have to tell that this is the way it is to be done and not this way? He is not difficult. He is different. And why he is different? He means she also. All the she's are smiling here that she is. Why it is different? Is because the mental makeup, which is nothing but the manifestation of the samskaras which the person has brought in this life, in this form, to experience. So irrespective of what you one may say or do, the samskaras rule supreme. There is a way out, as I said sometime earlier, that the samskaras may impel you to take a certain course of action, but it cannot compel you to take that action. For that you require a very strong, mind control, mental power, and of course the grace of God supporting you so that you break through the samskaric pattern and take a totally different path. That's a different story. So that means acquired in the previous lives also, that would determine what steps you would take in order to further your spiritual progress. He should be guided by the creed of his conscience and follow the method that best suits his spiritual tendency, his physical aptitude, and his external circumstances. Truth is one, but the approach to it is essentially individual. And then, of course, I'm not going to read that tongue twisting. Somya already read it. So basically, it means that nature's beauty has thousands of facets, for which there are thousands of ways and means of acceptance, understanding in the path of gnosis. Gnosis means the inner spiritual
इरफान,
path.
तारीख
Knowledge,
इरफान।
knowledge, inner knowledge.
मैं क्या बताऊं?
Who can determine which particular mode or mood is earmarked for a given individual?
ये
So
राह
each-
किसकी, वो राह किसकी? ये राह किसकी, वो राह
ये
किसकी?
राह किसकी, वो राह किसकी. Okay.
You don't want to go this paragraph? We finished it.
No, this is the whole thing is two.
Oh, renunciation.
This-
Yeah, sorry,
this-
Baba. Sorry, Baba.
Okay, maaf kiya. This supplement number 2 is a long supplement, so perhaps let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long supplement.
Very long.
Never mind.
Yeah, sorry, Baba.
Excuse
When a
me.
pilgrim, and by pilgrim we mean here aspirant or disciple, feels drawn.
Somya, your lung capacity is echoing. Too much air inside.
When a pilgrim and by
Ek minute.
I can't see.
Okay, but let him set the. Okay, bolo. Go ahead.
When a
sorry.
pilgrim, and by pilgrim we mean here aspirant or disciple, feels drawn to renunciation, it means that the spirit of renunciation was already latent in him. This readiness results from the swinging of the terrible pendulum from pain to pleasure and pleasure to pain in the countless forms of evolution and in the countless entrances and exits through the doors of birth and death experienced during reincarnation. Because the spirit of renunciation is latent, it needs only some exciting cause to bring it to the surface. And it is only when it comes to the surface that we are able to see the power and nature of the latent spirit.
See, basically, Baba elsewhere, now Baba is talking individual aspects. The one is renunciation. Baba talks elsewhere in the discourses that there is an external renunciation, there is an internal renunciation. External renunciation may to some extent aid or assist or help internal renunciation, but the real renunciation is internal renunciation, because externally I may go into the jungle or mountain or cave, but I carry my own mind. That means I carry my own likes and dislikes, my own prejudices, my own desires, that is not going to help. In a document, superb document which Baba has given, the 7 realities, we all know that, it is mentioned, the 7, point number 4, the only real renunciation is that which abandons, even in the midst of worldly duties, all selfish thoughts and desires. So, in other words, internal renunciation could mean, this is on Lord Meher, volume 9, page number 2654, where Baba says that internal renunciation means, in my understanding, to do all that needs to be done under a given set of circumstances, but do not be attached to the results and leave all your selfish desires and requirements. Even in the midst of worldly duties, all selfish thoughts and desires, that is real renunciation. But here Baba talks about, which Somya said, basically, I'll just read out. It means the same thing. When a pilgrim, and by pilgrim we mean your aspirant or a disciple, feels drawn to renunciation, it should come spontaneously. The key word is you must feel deep down from within. Oh, somebody has renounced, so let me also follow him. Somebody is doing commerce, so let me do commerce or science or arts. No, it should come from within that this is what I want to do. So, feel drawn to renunciation. It means that the spirit of renunciation was already latent in him. Now it is manifesting. This readiness results from the swinging of the terrible pendulum from pain to pleasure and pleasure to pain in the countless forms of evolution and in the countless entrances and exists through the doors of birth and death experienced during reincarnation. So here Baba is even covering the evolution process of, the plants, fish, animal, bird, whatever, birds, animal, and then also human beings. So because of that countless thrashings, that now the consciousness has become matured. The consciousness is realizing the ephemereness, the transitoriness, the impermanence of all that is happening in terms of pleasure and pain, and now he wants to renounce everything. Because this spirit of renunciation is latent, it needs only some exciting cause to bring it to the surface, and it is only when it comes to the surface that we are able to see the power and nature of the latent spirit. In each one of us, there is latency.
Excitement is the key.
Sorry?
Excitement is the key.
Yeah. Actually, I feel that it is only the master who just taps, that particular latency and manifests it, and then you go into renunciation. But renunciation does not mean, as I said, running away from life. because Baba has never ever advocated that. There was a person, I don't want to name, who, Baba lover, who wrote to Baba saying that I want to do this, renounce. I want to do this, do that, whatever it may be. Maybe observing silence, going into the mountains, blah, blah. A very beautiful reply, if I remember correctly, words to the effect, do not be serving yourself by indulging in all these things. When you are doing all these things, you are actually aggrandizing your own ego. Do not be words to the effect, again I am saying, in other words, continue loving me the way you have been loving me, and that is enough for you. Don't get into all this gymnastics, or whatever, spiritual acrobatics and all that. I also remember another gentleman who wanted to do all these things and asked Baba as to he wanted to have quick spirituality. So again, a similar response from Baba was like, this is how I remember somebody saying, what, Baba Isha, what? You want to become a yogi? He was a very dear Baba lover. Eat, drink, and be merry, and continue doing my work as a pleasant hobby. What a powerful way. The Baba doesn't encourage us to run away and do something. He says, just be where you are, because that is the best place for you to be based on the samskaras that you have gathered in your past several lives. And what better place than to be in the closed circuit of beloved Baba? And when I say closed circuit, I don't mean the physical closed circuit like Meherabad, anywhere you may be. But if you have Baba in your heart, and if you are in constant touch with him in your heart, then that is the closed circuit.
If the latent spirit is simply a spiritual indigestion from a temporary surfeit of pain, combined with a mild desire for something more pleasant, the overt renunciation will be only a fleeting and feeble kind, a mere temporary escape from unpleasantness. At its best, however, this latent spirit is a secret pact of aggression between an incurable disgust for the world and an ardent and burning thirst for God. When it comes to the surface, it shows itself as an invincible determination to marshal the entire being to the attainment of victory over the lower self, and to reject everything that is irrelevant to this great and terrible struggle. Note the word reject. It means that such a pilgrim casts aside irrelevancies. He might call renunciation the fruit of the flower of spiritual longing, fertilized by the pollen of disgust for the futility of endless births and deaths. Once renunciation expresses itself, there are many ways of looking at it, of which the simplest is to divide it into two main types, internal and external.
Elsewhere, again in discourses, Baba talks about Samshan Vairagya. Samshan Vairagya. You go to the crematorium, Samshan, and you feel, what is this life about? After all, he was so rich, he had everything. What is he now? Nothing but ashes. So there's no point in this thing. I want to have renunciation. After 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days, nahi Baba, chalo, let me enjoy life. So it should not be like that. So very beautiful wordings Baba is using. If the latent spirit is simply a spiritual indigestion, it's an indigestion from a temporary surfeit of pain. Surfeit of pain would mean excessive amount of anything is called surfeit. Surfeit of pain combined with a mild desire for something more pleasant. The overt means external, the overt renunciation will be only a fleeting, very upar se, very superfluous, fleeting and feeble kind, and a mere temporary escape from unpleasantness. At its best, however, this latent spirit is a secret pact of aggression between an incurable disgust for the world and an ardent means again very, very powerful, ardent, expressing passion, spirit, ardent.
Enthusiasm.
Enthusiastic, yes, enthusiasm. Ardent and burning thirst for God. So it's a mixture of incurable disgust. Some people, they don't have good health, or they don't have good relationship, or whatever it may be. They, out of that disgust, they want to just run away from life and say that this is my renunciation. When it comes to the surface, it shows itself as an invincible determination. In other words, invincible would mean very powerful, too powerful to be destroyed or defeated or killed or overcome. So if it comes to the surface, it becomes an invincible determination to marshal the entire being. To marshal means to guide, to usher, to arrange, to conduct, means everything you do in that favor. To marshal the entire being to the attainment of victory over the lower self. When we talk about jihad, or when we talk about the holy war, basically it is a constant war between our higher self, which is God, and the lower self, which is the false I. That is the real meaning of the war. Lower self. And to reject everything that is irrelevant to this great and terrible struggle. So such a person, when he is confronted with a situation, he will say, is it relevant to where I want to go? Is it propelling me to what I want to become? Or is it irrelevant? It has no meaning, it is irrelevance, So he just drops it. Note this word reject. It means that such pilgrim casts aside irrelevancies. Anything, even in our normal life, we get many thoughts, emotions, desires, whatever. The question to be asked is it of service to me? Is it serving me? Or is it of disservice to me? If I keep continuing that thought or feeling or emotion, is it making me feel, aha, nice, sukoon, calm, poised, calmness and all? No, it is irrelevant. It has no meaning. It has no place in my being. Dump it. Throw it in the toilet and flush it 2-3 times and let it go off. So once we practice this habit of asking whether there is any relevance to where I want to go, or is it irrelevant to what I want to become or where I want to go. If it is irrelevant, just dump it. So note this word reject. It means that such a pilgrim casts aside irrelevancies. We might call renunciation the fruit of the flower of spiritual longing, fertilized by the pollen of disgust. Disgust for what? For the futility of endless births and deaths. It's a futility of endless births and deaths. I have said this on this forum where Ramakrishna Paramhamsa would say, and I have repeated it 100 times, he is born to no purpose who, having the rare privilege of being born a man, does not realize God in this very life. So in other words, once we get the human form, and Baba has given us a shortcut. Remember me at the time of breathing your last and you get moksha, mukti, liberation. Why can't we make that as our aim in life, as our goal in life? So finally at the end of and Baba had said, I repeat it, this is what I've heard in Gujarati. Baba would say, Are Baba, mane to aavu pade chhe. Means I have to come because it is my responsibility. because I am the mischievous chicken who started it all. મને તો આવું ઉપર જ, પણ તમે લોકો કાંઈ આવ્યા કરો છો ઘરી ઘરી? Why do you keep coming over and over again? Why can't you just get off? So that is where we have to target our goal. Disgust for the futility of endless births and deaths. Sorry. Once renunciation expresses itself in this way, there are many ways of looking at it, of which the simplest is to divide it into two main types, external and internal. There are many ways you can divide the aspect of renunciation, but basically these are the two main factors.
External renunciation means giving up completely all worldly delights and physical attachments to material things. In the early stages, this renunciation is helpful to the extent to which it leads to internal renunciation and preoccupation with God. Tens of thousands of so-called sannyasis, renunciators, are to be found in India, of whom far too many have adopted this external renunciation only as a profession that enables them to indulge in an unproductive life of idleness. External renunciation, however, can be and often is real. When this is so, it will inevitably lead on to internal renunciation, and this is the renunciation that matters. Internal renunciation means the control of desires at their very source so that the mind does not fall a prey to the demands of lust, greed, and anger. This does not mean that one shall cease at once to have such thoughts. This is impossible, as such thoughts will continue to be troublesome as long as the sanskaras from which they arise are part of one's being. The fight is necessarily hard and long.
I'll repeat. External renunciation means giving up completely all worldly delights and physical attachments to material things. Basically, elsewhere Baba also said, this is to a certain extent a little contrary, and there are many statements. It has to be read in the context in which we are studying. That do everything, but don't be attached. In other words, it is the attachment that creates issues. In the early stages, this renunciation is helpful to the extent to which it leads to internal renunciation and preoccupation with God. Somewhere else again, Baba said there's an indirect way and there's a direct way. If you automatically start having preoccupation with God, loving God in a very natural, spontaneous way, inviting Him to be our partner in our day-to-day living, whatever, that automatically, it's a positive way, automatically external renunciation is arrived at because you do not give any importance to other aspects of life, which means the physical aspect of life. Like somebody had asked Baba, that I want to get rid of all my negativities and and then start loving you. So that's a negative, in a sense, first you want to throw away the negativity. Now when you are throwing away the negativity, your focus is only on negativity. And wherever the focus is, that thing grows. Why should I put my focus on something which is not good, or as we call bad? So Baba said there is a positive way of doing it. Start loving me. Start loving everybody. Don't start judging anybody. Don't start criticizing anybody. Don't backbite anybody. Just see me in each and every one. And that's the positive way. And automatically, effortlessly, things will just go away. I remember a very humorous Erech was asked, Erech was a Zoroastrian. So in the Zoroastrian creed, we are supposed to wear what is known as sadra and kasti. And Erech never wore, he was on that ganji, anything that anybody gave, he would just wear it without any, whether it suited his personality or not, everything suited him. It was like that. So somebody asked, where is your sadra kasti? What happened to your religion? He answered it in one word, khari par you. Khari par you, khari par you is a Gujarati word, it just dropped off. I did not have to do anything not to wear, it just fell off. It just fell off. Khari par you, that way.
Molting of the snake.
Sorry?
The molting of the snake.
Like a molting of the snake. That snake molds skin, automatically just. So in the same way, the positive aspect is to constantly think about Baba, constantly invite him in whatever we do. So automatically the negative aspect will just get rid of without any effort on our part. We don't have to make an effort to let go of the desires. So there are two ways of doing it. Tens of thousands of so-called sannyasis, renunciators, are to be found in India, of whom far too many have adopted this external renunciation only as a profession that enables them to indulge in an unproductive life of idleness. I remember Baba had gone somewhere, where Badrinath, Kashinath, wherever, where there were thousands of sadhus. I think it was Mani who said, and Baba said, you see so many sadhus with long beard and ash smeared and all that, like this is the figure for 7. There are hardly 7 who are genuinely renunciators. External renunciation, however, can be and often is real. That means it's not all negative, that all are idlers. When this is so, it will inevitably lead on to internal renunciation. That means external renunciation do aid and assist and help internal renunciation. And this is the renunciation that matters, the internal renunciation. Being in the world, performing all our duties and responsibilities, not being attached to it, offering it all to Baba, not feeling, aha, I did this when something goes right, or not feeling very, so in a state of equanimity, everything is done by Baba through me, and just forget about it. Just do it before starting anything. That's what Baba says. Think it is Baba doing it through you. After the whole thing is over, offer it to Baba, irrespective of what the results are. Results should not be affecting you. This does not mean that one shall cease at once to have such thoughts. No, sorry. No. Internal renunciation means the control of desires at their very source, so that the mind does not fall a prey to the demands of lust, greed, and anger. See, basically, I understand that we are all gross conscious human beings. That means our control is only on the gross. We have no control over our thoughts. We have no control over our feelings. We have no control over our emotions. We have no control over our desires, because they are in the domain of subtle and mental. So what Baba says is, the thoughts and the desires will not stop all of a sudden. They will keep on coming. They will keep on coming. And as they keep on coming, all you need to do is to observe it, is to witness it, be a witness. These are my desires, but I am not the desire. These are my thoughts, but I am not the thoughts. Because these desires and thoughts are nothing but the manifestation of the already accumulated samskaras or impressions. So they will keep coming, they will not stop. All you have to do is not to indulge in action, so that again it will start happening again and again. So, irrespective of what thoughts come, what feelings come, what emotions come, what desires come, Baba said, just watch it come and go, watch it come and go. Do not invite it. Many times we invite, when we have nothing to do, we go into the past and chal, 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 come. Or sometimes it has come on its own and just about to go, अरे किधर जाता है, आओ बैठो चाय पिएगा साथ में बैठ के. So it is so neither invite nor indulge nor fear nor try to fight, just watch it and let it go. And if we do that over a long period of time, automatically the energy which is caught up in those desires, in those samskaras, gradually gets exhausted, weakened to a point where it has no power over you. It will not either compel or even impel you to take any action. Coming back to the reading, this does not mean that one shall cease at once to have such thoughts. No, it will keep coming because the power is there. It's like there is a fire and the smoke will keep on coming. Smoke will keep, but if you fan the smoke, again it will start the fire. So let the smoke come, just observe it. This is impossible, as such thoughts will continue to be troublesome as long as the sanskaras from which they arise are part of one's being. Because of the sanskaras you get thoughts. The fight is necessarily hard and long.
For the West in particular, external renunciation is inadvisable and impracticable. It should be internal and of the mind from the start. One should live in the world, perform all legitimate duties, and yet feel mentally detached from everything. One should be in the world but not of it. The Sufis say, Dil ba yar dast bikhar. The heart with God, the hands for work.
So Baba, being a very practical master, said that external renunciation for the Westerners is not advisable nor practical. It's impractical. All you do is just perform your duties the way they come automatically according to your past samskaras, and do not be attached to anything. Just let it come. Sorry?
Sufis call God as Yar. Sufis call God as Yar. Yar.
Sufis are calling God as Yar. Yeah, of course.
Friend.
क्या यार बात करता है?
Friend.
Friend, okay.
Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia, the perfect master of Delhi, was once asked by a visitor how one should live in the world. At that moment, it so happened that a few women were passing by with pitchers of water balanced on their heads, and as they walked, they gossiped and gesticulated. Pointing to them, Nizamuddin said, "Look at those women. That's how you should live in the world." Asked to explain this cryptic remark, the master continued, "These women, returning from the well with pitchers balanced on their heads, seem to be thinking of nothing else but exchanging tidbits of gossip with each other, and yet they are all the time concentrating on something far more important, on balancing the pitchers on their heads. Thus, whatever your body, your senses, or the purely surface part of your mind may be occupied with, see that the root of your mind is constantly focused on God."
मस्ती में भी अपना सर साकी के कदमों पे. It's like that. Irrespective of what you may be doing externally in the world, at the back of your mind, your remembrance of God should always be there. That the ladies, they are carrying the picture and they seem to be, chit-chatting and all that. Baba is not using the word slandering and backbiting, so that you should not do at all. What is the word used? The word used is...
Gossip.
No.
Gossip and gesture.
Gossiping. Gossiping is okay.
Gossiping is okay.
So see how practical the perfect master says you have to live like this. Such a profound one sentence solution to all the questions. How should you live? Live like this. Do whatever yet you need to be done, but back of your mind, always Baba.
Vaitag and Vairagya. If we look upon renunciation as being a state of mind, we can understand how this state of mind may be either temporary or permanent. The former is known as Vaitag and the latter as Vairagya. Vaitag, temporary renunciation, is simply a temporary disgust for the world and its affairs resulting from some shock, disappointment, or loss combined with a vague desire for God, or it may come from a sudden impulse. In Vaitag, the mind turns away from the world and takes to godly ways. But this attitude is not lasting, and the mind returns to its old ways as soon as circumstances alter or as soon as the impulse dies down. Vaitag is a Marathi word.
Yeah, Vaitag. Sometimes we say starts with a bang and ends with a whimper. You know, you're very excited to start something, you know. There are many whom we encounter, you know, when they first come to Baba, they are so vibrating with this, and then gradually it just fades away.
Like New Year resolution.
Huh?
Like New Year resolution.
Like New Year resolution, okay. A friend of mine who was a chain, I would not say was, is a chain smoker. You know what is a chain smoker? You know, you make a chain. This is getting over, so another one. So that's called chain smoker, you know. So he said, who says that it is difficult to quit smoking? He said, well, who says it is difficult? I have done it several times. Means I quit smoking several times. That means he has not quit as yet, you know. So many people are very enthused, you know, to do something and then it just tapers down. So that is the Vaitag. I don't think it requires any explanation.
Vairagya, irrevocable renunciation, however, is an attitude of mind involving such a longing for God and such a deep indifference to things worldly that once roused, it knows no retreat and is proof against all temptations to give it up. The famous example of Gautama Buddha is illustrative of Vairagya.
That is, it is an attitude of the mind where nothing disturbs you, nothing perturbs you, nothing will pull you back into the worldly matters. You know, now you have decided once and for all, this is my path, and there is no retracing those. It just moves forward into the direction we have decided to go.
We have already explained that renunciation is the overt expression of a latent desire for union with God combined with a latent spirit of disgust for the world. And we used an analogy of flower, pollen, and fruit. As far as fertilization is concerned, the flower and the pollen by themselves are helpless, for the two can only be brought together by some outside agency such as the wind, the bee, or the insect. Whether or not fertilization takes place in nature may depend upon so many thousands of unknown factors that modern science gives up trying to predict it and labels it chance. That, however, is beside the point at the moment, and in our analogy, we shall think of this fertilization as a gift.
In other words, this fertilization of even manifestation of the latent desire to renounce the world, you know, it comes as a gift. In a sense, it comes as a gift. On one side, you have a genuine longing to become one with the truth, one with the self, one with God. And simultaneously, there is a total disgust with the things of the world, knowing its futility and knowing its transitoriness.
To return to Vairagya, let us remember that the longing for union with God is latent in every living being. However, it only pushes its way into consciousness when the soul approaches the beginning of what Meher Baba in the divine theme calls the realization process. The disgust for the world is also something that develops naturally in all of us and which grows more and more powerful as we draw nearer to the beginning of this realization process. When the flower is in full bloom and the pollen ripe, the wind or the bee gives the gift of fertilization that produces the fruit. In the same way, also, when this moment of inner readiness comes, a divine gift descends upon the soul, which fertilizes the longing for God and the disgust or indifference for the world, and so brings about the priceless fruit of Vairagya. This divine gift may be a touch of inner grace from the indwelling God, or it may be the result of contact with a saint or a perfect master, but it is always a gift.
To return to Vairagya, let us remember that the longing for union with God is latent in every living being. Sometime earlier I had said, that fire is associated with the sun. Irrespective of wherever you may lit a fire, it will always direct itself towards the sun. That means up. You take the fire as in the depths of the earth, it will always go up because that is connected with the sun. This is my understanding, it's not in Baba's books. Water is connected with the ocean. You take water anywhere, pour it, it will come down because it wants to become one with the ocean. Similarly, the spirit of individuals, beings, that means not just human beings but everything, in that there is a microchip, so to speak. There is a spark which always turns towards God. There is no way in which you cannot go and merge into God. There is this beautiful statement which I have been repeating. There is no creature which is not destined for the supreme goal, as there is no river which is not winding its way to the sea. The river ultimately goes zigzag, zigzag and goes into the sea. In the same way, each and every creature, that means each and every creation, ultimately realizes itself as the creator. Because basically and factually, it is the creator who is playing the role of a creature in order to once again realize that I am the creator. When you read the Everything and the Nothing, the very first chapter, Baba talks about that, that there is nothing but God. So how can God love anybody? So he has to behave as if he is the lover, who as his lover, I don't know the exact words. There is a lover and a beloved. Words to the effect, God is love and love must love. And God is love and love must love. In order for God to love, he needs a beloved. But when God is everyone and everything, he is infinite and eternal, whom can he love except himself? So in order to create that love, the beloved becomes the lover, whom he as a lover loves the beloved. Words to the effect, not the exact word. So basically it's all a game of one apparently separating into duality and again coming into one. So the whole game is like that. So here Baba says that to return to let us remember that the longing for union with God is latent in every living being. It is there. However, It only pushes its way into consciousness when the soul approaches the beginning of what Meher Baba in the divine theme calls the realization process. What is the realization process? The involutionary journey. The first plane, second plane. I may talk about loving God, but that is factually, there is no real love. Because Baba says, love is a gift from God to men. The love that Baba wants. It cannot be created by one's own self. It has to be given as a gift. And it's a gift which is very rarely given. And once it is given to any individual, that individual behaves like a fish flopping out of water, wanting to go back to the ocean. That is the situation of the lover who is bestowed with this gift. We talk about very vaguely love, I love God. I don't. It is I don't think I do. I remember one disciple who was pestering Baba all the time. Baba, I want your love. Baba, I want your love. Time will come when I will give you. To put an end to his pestering, Baba says, today I am in a mood to give that gift to you. He was very happy. I am going to pour that gift into your cup. But if your cup cracks, then I am not to be responsible for that. From that day, he stopped asking for gift because cup cracks means you will die. You can't, we call it jelofy. You can't contain that gift. It is something which is to be given to very able, matured, spiritually matured person. So, okay, the disgust for the world is also something that develops naturally in all of us and which grows more and more powerful as we draw nearer to the beginning of this realization process. Obviously, disgust for the world would mean disgust for the gross enchantment, the desire, the power, the greed, the lust, the whatever, Because as we progress, our concentrated gross samskaras becomes thin, fine, faint, whatever you call it. And so automatically there is indifference to the things of the world, and that when that indifference gradually graduates, it becomes a kind of a disgust. I want nothing to do with the world. My focus is only on God. So Baba says that also automatically. When the flower is in full bloom and the pollen ripe, the wind or the bee gives the gift of fertilization that produces the fruit. In the same way also, when the moment of inner readiness, not parity, I am ready to get, no, inner readiness comes, a divine gift descends upon the soul, which fertilizes the longing for God and the disgust or indifference for the world, and so brings about the priceless fruit of Vairagya. Everything is inner. Externally, I may act or behave or show off in a certain manner that I am a great lover of God. It has no meaning. It is the inner that is important. There was once a person who used to do a lot of Baba work. We call it Baba work. External Baba work. Feeling very proud about it. That I am doing this work, that work, this thing. There was a darshan program, and Baba would look very lovingly to each one, and not only those who are passing by, but somebody who is far away, Baba would say, yes, you, how are you, and all that. Have you seen that? Whenever this gentleman would move, Baba would not pay attention to him. So he was feeling very disgusted, he was feeling very sad about it. He said, Baba, I am such a great lover of yours, I am doing so much of work, this and that and all that. And Baba is not looking at me. We say, through Mary to Jesus, So in Baba's community, it was through Mera to Baba, if it's a woman. And if it's a man, it would be through Eraj or somebody, Bao or Adi. So somehow he caught hold of Erach and said, Baba is so indifferent to me. You know, he's not even looking at me. I've done so much work for Baba and not even a sideways glance also he's not giving me. Erach said, okay, I'll just ask, at an appropriate time. You just can't barge in and ask Baba, why do you do this? So at the appropriate moment, he's saying, Baba, there is one lover of yours who has done very good work, this thing, that thing. It seems that you are not paying attention to me. Baba replies, that for you people, if you see a beautiful woman, Baba, naturally your gaze goes over there. Naturally, you don't have to do anything. In the same way, I don't see the physicality of the person. I see their aura. I see their aura, and wherever the aura is bright, my attention automatically goes there. So perhaps I am, in a sense, neglecting, because he may be doing all these things, but he has got a big ego that I am doing, I am doing, I am doing. Like Adi Kaka would say that when you are doing all these things for Baba, on one side you have, let us say, asset. He used the word assets of $1 million. He used the word dollars, I don't know why, in the Bombay Center when he spoke. And on the other hand, I, 1.5 million liability, So Baba, so it's a very, very tricky situation to be called a Baba lover or a Baba worker, because on the 3rd of November 1962, when Baba conducted the East-West gathering, he gave a long message on my dear workers. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but one sentence which is very close to my heart, when you allow yourself to come between you and the work. In other words, when you put your ego in, when you are doing my work, you are allowing yourself to be taken.
The work to take you away.
1 minute. Words to the effect, sorry. I tend to forget these days. In other words, you are doing the work, but you have got this ego that I am doing. That work will take you away from me. Away from me. Whereas I am thinking I am doing so much of work. But that work itself is taking me away from Baba, because there is this I am doing it. Very, very tricky. And there are many such beautiful, but this is not the forum to discuss that. But still I feel tempted. There's an urge to say. I remember Adi Kaka saying, very, very profound. To conduct meetings for Baba, whatever. We have got this center, that center, this idol, that idol, this photo frame, whatever. And there is love. If there is love, and if you do all these things, then you have put the horse before the cart. It will go. But if you are doing all these things only for the sake of doing, that center is doing this is this, I will also do it. If they've got 5 days program, I'll make it 7 days program, something like that. Then you are putting the cart before the horse. And it has no relevance, it has no meaning. In fact, Adi Kaka came so strongly. If that happens, that the work should stop. Very correct, very strongly said. If that happens, that you are doing it simply for the for the sake of doing it, your organization is only organizing without any spirit of love, then that work should stop. Anyway, I have digressed a little bit. All right. So, in the same way also, when this moment of inner readiness comes, so inner is the most important thing. A divine gift descends upon the soul, which fertilizes the longing for God and the disgust or indifference for the world, and to bring about the priceless fruit of Vairagya. This divine gift, very important, may be a touch of inner grace from the indwelling God. There is no need for us to go out in search of any masters or Sadgurus or whatever it is. Many people say, well, who is the present Sadguru? I said, how does it matter? How does it matter to us who are associated with Baba? He's the avatar. The avatar is the eternal, living, perfect master. Whether he is in the form which is in the body or not in the body, he is always, at all times, available to all of us. Why do you want to go in there? In any case, even otherwise, you never have to go in search of the master. When the disciple is ready, the master arrives. Automatic. It's very automatic. So here Baba says, very, very profound. This divine gift may be a touch of inner grace from the indwelling God, or it may be the result of a contact with a saint or a perfect master. It can be contact, but it is always a gift. It is always a gift that will touch, and there is this Vairagya.
Vairagya, when it first becomes manifest, will almost certainly express itself for a time as an external renunciation. But Vairagya, being permanent, will always lead sooner or later to the real renunciation, which is internal.
That means if it's a Vairagya, if it's a touch, whether given by the internal or external, it is permanent. It is not like Vaitag, which is, bubbling, 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 and then fizzles out like that. Go ahead. We still have time.
When an aspirant has such an intense longing for truth, he is qualified to enter the path.
So the most important thing, there has to be longing for truth. I really don't know. I can only speak for myself. Only then you are prepared to enter the path. Many people have been following many so-called spiritual practices for many years. Getting up in the morning, doing this, doing that. And sometimes they ask, what do you think I am on which plane? How can I say I am totally on gross? If there is an underground, then I am there only. How can I say what plane? So many people are under the assumption that doing these external things will take you to the plane. I don't know, it may. And I tell them, when they say whether I'm on the first plane or second plane or whatever, I think I said this earlier, I just pinch them hard. And they say, oh, that means you are not on the plane. Because when you are in the subtle world, your sense of touch and your sense of taste goes away. Or you give that person a very tikka mirchi, what is it called? A very pungent chili and say, eat it. Chaba chaba ke kha leo. That means you are not on the plane because the sense of touch and the sense of taste has gone away. All right. Repeat.
When an aspirant has such an intense longing for truth, he is qualified to enter the path. There is a story of a master who was pestered by a disciple as to when he would realize God. Once, when they went to bathe in a river, the master held the aspirant under water for a few moments. When the disciple was on the verge of suffocation, the master pulled him out and asked what he had thought of and longed for most while under the water. The aspirant replied, air. The master replied that when the disciple had just as intense a longing for God, then realization would come. Maulana Rumi says, Op komju tishigni awar bidost. Call out for water less, but create thirst for it more.
There's another way of look, same thing, call out for water less, create the thirst first. When the thirst is created, automatically the water will come. We are only talking about water, but where is the thirst? Where is the longing? How can you see God unless there is longing? And so when the master put the head in water and kept it for a while and then brought it out, and what is it that you are Grasping for what is it that you were wanting the most? Air. So when you become like that, when you are grasping for God, only then the gift will come. So we'll read the last line. Yeah.
In the words of Meher Baba, the path begins with a conscious longing for a deeper reality. As the fish which is taken out of water longs to go back to the water, so the aspirant who has sensed the goal longs to be united with God. In fact, the longing to go back to the source is present in each being from the very time that it gets separated from the source by the veil of ignorance. But it is unconscious till the aspirant enters the path.
As I said, that spark, that chip is there in each and every apparently separated soul. Apparently separated soul. It is there. But it manifests only as you come closer and closer to the involutionary journey or to the path. Only then it becomes more conscious. Even for people in the gross world like maybe you and I don't know about you, but there is no real longing as such. You see, the longing has to be such that you cannot do without him. It's like that.
There's an asterisk for path. See also Meher Baba, The Stages of the Path, Discourses, pages 128 to 134 by
No,
the
that
editor.
we have not brought the discourses, and I don't. Otherwise, we'll be again digressing. As it is, this is not digressing. We can do that also. So I think we stop here because there are hardly a few minutes more, and I don't want to start 3 minutes more. I don't want to start a new paragraph because you want to read this paragraph. Huh? Tauba. Okay.
The Sufis call this attitude of mind tawbah, meaning repentance and implying the turning away from or renouncing of the life of the senses for the life of the spirit. One who has taken this great step does not look back again at that which he has left behind.
We will find a lot of Sufi thought in the supplements, for the simple reason that much of it had been written by Dr. Ghani, Abdul Munsif Ghani. And when Baba gave the manuscripts, the written to Ivy Odious and Dr.
Don
Stevens, Baba said, see, this is also there. If you think it is worthwhile, we can include it. And they both felt that when Baba is given, that means it has some distinct. So it adds to the meaning, So that is why the supplement is extremely important. And also it is important that we read it side by side. Not that we finish God Speaks first and then read only the supplement, that it won't make any sense. I think we end here, so there are only 2 minutes more. So here Baba talks about Tawbah, which means repentance. We know Toba Toba. There is that film song also, no? Toba Toba something. Somya will sing. Implying the turning away from or renouncing of the life of the senses for the life of the spirit. And it should come spontaneously. When we were young, when small girls, they love their Barbie doll, or boys, they may love that teddy bear. And when they grow up, they are not attached to it. Initially, they are so attached to it that if, the teddy bear or the Barbie doll is lost, then it's like a life has gone, crying and weeping, not only crying and weeping, but they will even get fever, temperature, because they are so attached to it. But as they grow up, as we all grow up, we realize that there's nothing to be attached. So in the same way, when we realize the futility of the external world, we do play our part there in terms of discharging our duties and responsibility, playing our role in the ephemeral duality of creation. At the same time, making sure not to be caught up in it. There's very fine tuning there. Yeah, you have to play your part, but don't be caught up in that. Don't be attached to it. Don't weep and wail, and don't what should I say? Don't react to it in a manner as if that is real. Once we realize that this is an illusion, this is not real, then automatically our reaction gradually reduces and we turn into being more responsive than being reactive. Any questions? I think. Oh wow, exactly 6 o'clock. Thank you, Baba. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. Jai Baba. Thank you. Tomorrow again we are having a session at 4:30, same place, same time. Thank you, Baba. And Jai Baba, I need to thank mainly Naman for being here for us and Rochit. Rochit, yes, later, second thanks. First was Naman. Thank you, Baba. Thanks to all of you. Jai Baba.
जाओ
हाँ जाओ जाओ
समर
हमें खेल चाहिए नहीं 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 नहीं
नहीं और